Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GEMS podcast. I am so glad you all are here.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we are so lucky to be joined by Dr. Danielle Twum, who is a molecular science liaison. Thank you so much for joining us. To start off, do you mind telling me a little bit about yourself?
Oh, yeah. As you said, just once again, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. My name is Danielle Twum. I am originally from Ghana, West Africa, and I currently work as a molecular science liaison for a cancer diagnostics company. I have my bachelor's in biology from Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York, and I have a PhD in cancer immunology from the University of Buffalo.
So what kind of drew you into cancer immunology or STEM as a whole?
Yeah, good question. So I've always loved science. I was one of those kids who was always asking questions, and I was very lucky that I had a family that did not tell me to keep quiet. So my family really cultivated my love for science and pushed me. Going into cancer immunology, that was like a meandering path, because I actually went to college with the intent of becoming a medical doctor. And I was taking all the pre-med classes, doing all the requirements. And then I took one class with Professor Jody Schwartz. It was a bioinformatics class. And that just literally changed the course of my entire life. It was actually kind of wild. And so I did summer research with Jody that summer. I was a sophomore. And Jody was studying coral bleaching, which is what happens when corals lose their color. And she was using sea anemones, which is where Nemo lived. And I was like, oh yeah, I love Nemo. I could do this. So yeah, I fell in love with understanding coral bleaching, and I told Jody, I'm going to become a scientist. I don't want to become a medical doctor anymore. I like, teasing apart questions. And Jody said, no, that's really nice that you want to follow in my footsteps, but I think you like science in my lab. How about science in general? Like, how about research in general? Do you really like research in general? So she challenged me to apply to something else the next summer. So that would be my junior year summer. And she asked me, what else are you interested in? And I said, well, I've always been interested in cancer. I unfortunately lost my uncle to a brain tumor when he was really young. And I feel like a lot of people in cancer have this kind of same story, where you have a family member, a loved one who succumbed to this horrible disease. So she said, sure, apply to a cancer summer program. I was like, yeah, totally going to. But I'm going to go, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to study sea anemones. So I went to Roswell Park Cancer Institute for their summer program, and it was phenomenal. I had a great time. I learned so much. I made lifelong friends that I'm still friends with today. And it's been almost 10 years, 8 years, yeah, or even more actually. And so I came back and I looked at Jody and I said, hey girl, listen, I'm going to have to leave you behind. And so, yeah, and that's how I got into cancer. The immunology part, I was put in the Department of Immunology, understanding how the immune system fights against cancer. It's just so fascinating, and that's how it happened.
So last week we had the opportunity to talk with Dr. Tammy Goulet, who is a marine biologist that
I know Tammy, yeah.
And so she kind of told us a little bit about coral bleaching as well, which was super interesting. So
fun fact, Tammy and Jody know each other. So yeah.
I bet it's, a community of...
It is a small world of coral researchers, but yeah, I met, because Tammy is a triple AS event ambassador. And when I met her in Dallas last year, we were talking about, her research. And I was like, oh, I did research at Vassar. And she's like, oh, who was your professor? And I said, oh, Jody Schwartz. She's like, oh, yeah, I meet her at conferences all the time. I was like, oh, man, the world is way too small.
Yes, absolutely. So what was your doctoral research on in cancer immunology?
That's a good question. I do a great job of explaining that in this video on YouTube. I took part in this thing called a 3-minute thesis competition, where they challenged us to talk about our thesis work in under 3 minutes without any scientific jargon. Yeah. And I thought I did it, and I won second place, and I got $750, which was awesome. But yeah, so what I studied in my undergraduate, not my undergraduate, of course, I always love talking about corals. But no, what I studied in grad school, I studied these switches in cells. So your immune system. Do you know anything about your immune system?
A little bit.
What do you know? Okay, so what do you know? Tell me.
I mean, the immune system is kind of what we use to fight off infection or disease.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can hear a little bit, but my voice somehow slipped away from me this weekend. So my immune system must be in effect right now.
Oh, I hope you feel better soon. That's rough. Yeah, so your immune system is actually divided into two parts. I like to think of it as like the left hand and the right hand. If you're right hand dominant, think of it as if you can't lift something with your right hand, your left hand comes and helps. And if you're left hand dominant, same thing. So your immune system is broken into two. You have the innate immune response and the adaptive immune response. And the innate immune response is your first line of defense against any disease. They are made up of cells such as macrophages and neutrophils, and they are at the forefront of any disease. If anything tries to infect you, they mount the first response. And then if it becomes too much, they bring in reinforcements, also known as the adaptive immune system, T cells, B cells, which produce antibodies. And then they come help stuff out. That's why I said the analogy of right hand, left hand. If your right hand can't do it, your left hand can help. So what we know in cancer is that for some reason, there is this conversation that happens between cancer cells and immune cells, especially innate immune cells, cells known as macrophages. Their name roughly translates into big eater because that's how they actually kill cells. They eat things. Do you know this? If you know this, let me know. I can stop.
No, please keep. I'm interested. Keep going.
Oh, sweet. So yeah, macrophages eat cells. That's how they kill stuff. They ingest it and then just tear it apart and throw it away. So for some reason, there's a conversation that happens between cancer cells and macrophages where macrophages don't actually eat cancer cells to get rid of them. They actually start helping cancer cells grow. They start developing this kind of friendship that involves like an exchange of resources. And it's really awful because that's not what they're supposed to do. So what I was studying was so macrophages are really interesting because they're known as plastic. They're very plastic. If you put them in an environment, they can switch to adapt to the environment. That's what you call plasticity, is the ability to go from left to right, up, down, that kind of thing. And so what contributes to their plasticity are these switches. They're called transcription factors, but I just think of them as switches. And macrophages are able to turn on, off switches depending on where you put them, like little ballerinas kind of thing, like, doing their own thing. So I was studying whether I could manipulate macrophages by messing with their switches. So they would actually kill the cancer cell instead of become friends with the cancer cell. So that's what I was doing in grad school.
Well, that's super interesting. I was reading some of like your research and your goals of how to explain, your research or the things that you're looking into to, a kindergartner, someone who doesn't know the word macrophages, but you can use, a different type of word to kind of build that understanding. No, that's super interesting. So like you're talking about kind of like your immune system, and I think that one thing is like antibiotic resistance. That's like kind of maybe a hot topic or just something that has come up more recently that it's interesting to me, you know. Does that come into your work now, or was that more kind of like what you researched in your school?
So antibiotics are actually anti the thing that's trying to make you sick. So antibacteria, anti the biome, biotics, biome. And in cancer, I didn't worry about that. But there is research that suggests that the bacteria in your gut can contribute to how people respond to cancer treatment. So that's something that a lot of people are working on. With antibiotic resistance, what happens is that when you're given antibiotics to fight off a bacterial infection, if you don't finish the course, what you actually end up doing is you end up creating this cohort of bacteria that become resistant to the drug you're taking because you didn't finish taking it, because you didn't hit them with the complete blitz of the dose. So now they're like, oh, you only gave us half. Well, guess what? Here we are, stronger than ever, and then you got to take more. So that comes into play with infectious diseases. I didn't study infectious diseases at all. I was just purely cancer. Yeah.
So in your work now, have you had to look into the coronavirus, or I guess if you haven't, like, how has the pandemic affected your career?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm back working in cancer. I took a break from cancer after graduate school. I went to work with magnetic levitation, which is like a whole nother chapter of my life, which if I write a book at some point, I'm going to talk about that because it's really neat. No, my current job I work for a cancer diagnostics company. So let's see. So you're unique, right? You have your DNA. You're very unique. I'm very unique by my DNA. It's the same thing for our tumors. But our tumor, if you get cancer, your tumor is unique to you. And what the tumors have, I like to think of them, you know how clothes have tags on them? And then you take them, it's like, oh, polyester 30%, cotton 20%. Tumors also have that. They have X, they have this 20%, they have this 50%. They call them biomarkers, which makes a tumor very unique. And what my company does is we take the tumor and then we tell you basically your clothing tag, like, hey, this is the biomarker this tumor is expressing and this is the amount. And then we give you a drug suggestion for what can be used to kill it. What I do is I'm between the doctors who order our product and the company. So if the doctor has any questions about why a certain biomarker was seen or why a certain drug association was made, that's where I step in and explain why we did some of these things based on scientific literature, of course. So I haven't had to deal with the coronavirus. I actually switched jobs during the pandemic because this job came and I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. I'm ready for the next level. My job is fully remote now. If the pandemic hadn't happened, I would be going to meet doctors face to face to have these kinds of meetings and conversations, lunches, all of that. But now everything is virtual and it's taken a lot of discipline to work from home. But we're doing it. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you could speak to how much discipline it takes to work, to, do whatever you're doing from home. So.
Yes. So my school is half and half. Some are virtual and some aren't, but I'm at home. So
Person?
Some people are in person, but I decided to stay home. So
yeah, I mean, I get it. Some people, their parents are essential workers and their parents just can't be home. It's just, it's a mess. It's horrible. It's a horrible. I hate this pandemic. I want it to go away.
Absolutely agree. So I guess so. Essentially, your day-to-day operations consist of Zoom calls, or
yeah.
Do you do other research with your company? Is there some type of other operations that you're a part of?
Yeah. So just like the meetings are just one part of it. I'm part of like a disease group. I'm a disease group specialist. So I do gynecological cancers like ovarian cancer, uterine cancers. I'm supposed to know everything about ovarian cancers and uterine cancers. And then if we have meetings with gynecologists, I have to be on call for that. If they have any questions about how their work can merge with my company's product, I'm supposed to be on call for that. We have these things called journal clubs where we present papers like scientific literature that we've read that we think are interesting. I only know my calendar when they put stuff on it. It's just, apart from meetings, I have to study on my own to stay abreast of the literature. So that is also something I do. But yeah, most of my job is just one call after the other, giving expertise or learning. I learn a lot. We have seminars that are always teaching us. So yeah, it's very it's varied.
And so, in your career professional path, and even in your educational path, have you seen an apparent gap between male and females, or faced obstacles in that kind of realm?
Yeah, I think my current company, interestingly, for all the MSLs, there's a lot of women, which is really cool because we have our own like group chat too, where we talk about anything we're facing. But I have noticed that as you go higher and higher up, you see less and less women in higher up positions. And it's unfortunate because the system makes it so that women feel like they have to sacrifice upward mobility in their professional career in order to have a private life or to have like a personal life, which is awful. We should be able to have it all. Men can do it. Why not? And we try, but the world hasn't changed. The world hasn't caught up. It's changing, which is pretty awesome. I was in a lab in graduate school. There was only one boy and there were probably 4 girls. So I was very lucky to be in a lab like that. Some labs were not like that. But it's changing. I think what I've noticed is that it's changing. The more people learn about STEM and the different avenues and careers available to you once you have a STEM degree. But yeah, it's my life definitely has been different. I went to a very liberal arts school. Vassar is very insistent on keeping the ratios the same. But yeah, you notice when you talk to C-suite executives that there are more men than women, and it's not good. We need to fix that.
And you were talking about coming from Ghana and coming to the US for your school, or was there like did your family migrate here?
Yeah, it was an agreement I made with my dad that I would finish senior high school in Ghana and move to the US. My dad went to college in the US and stayed here and worked and lived. So he said all he asked is that I go to college in the US and then after that, do whatever I want to do with my life. All I had to do was finish college. So yeah, I moved here officially when oh my God, was it 13 years ago or something like that? Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, I took a year off, which was great after high school.
So it's something you recommend?
Oh, absolutely take that year off. It might seem like you're staying behind, but you have your whole life to be successful. So why don't you just take a year off to just figure yourself out? Travel if you want, work and save more money for school, anything. My sister got a baking certification when she took her year off. So she can my sister can bake really, really well. I know she can even make wedding cakes, which how many people could just like casually say, oh, I could make a wedding cake for you. So yeah, I took a year off. I took that year off. I taught in a rural school in Ghana. When I moved to the US, I waited until, I was waiting for my green card to come in. It came in and I started actually working at Sears. I don't know if I worked at Sears as a pricing associate, which was the job that, you always see this, it's like the sign that says 40% off, 30% off. They're actually humans. I thought elves did that. Apparently humans do that. So that was my job, was just changing the prices on things. And it was a great introduction into American society because I got to see regular people come to the mall, shop, see all these different facets of this new country that I had moved to. So that was a very valuable experience for sure.
And so, what other experiences, I guess, during your education, such as internships or, like you mentioned, your lab work, were there other internships other than the cancer, I guess, was it cancer research?
Yeah, so
or something?
Yeah, it was a summer research program at Roswell Park. Yeah, so I think my freshman summer I took it off because and that's something that everyone should know. If you want to do an internship, start looking in the fall semester. don't wait until the spring, because some of the deadlines are in January for a lot of these things, or even in December. And I didn't know that. I wish someone had told me that, because my freshman summer, by the time I was done with freshman year, I was like, oh, I want an internship. And they're like, no, girl, you should have applied a long time ago. So I took my freshman summer off. I think I came to California to visit my sister. And then because now I knew, I applied so Vassar has its own summer program, and that's how I worked with Jody my sophomore year summer. And then junior year, I went and I applied to Roswell Park, and then I got in, and so I did that. And then senior year, I got into graduate school very early, which was also a really weird story. If you ask me, I'll tell you. If you don't ask me, I won't tell you.
Please, no, go ahead, yes.
So this is where the value of internships is very important, because your question was a great one. When I finished my summer program at Roswell Park, we had a poster session, which is part of the course for every summer program. When you're done, you have to give a poster session and defend your poster, and also give a talk. So I was at my poster, and this lady approached me and asked me, oh, what did you do this summer? So, I start waxing lyrical. I did this, I did that, looked at kidney cancers and all of this good stuff. And the lady asked me what my plans were after college. And I said, oh, I'm going to take another year off. I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to work as a lab tech, chill, figure my life out. And the lady said, oh, no, I think you should apply to graduate school. I was like, oh, no, PhD is a lot of work. And she said, okay, well, here's my card. Let me know if you ever think of coming here for graduate school. I was like, oh, yeah, thanks, girl. I appreciate that. So she leaves. I don't even look at the card. I just put it in my bag because I'm caught up in the excitement of the poster session. So I go home, I go back to the dorms where we were living at, and I pull out the card, and she was the director of admissions. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, sweet, great. So I go back to college for my senior year, and Jody and I are talking about my life, what next. And that's the one thing I love about Jody, was that Jody dreamed for me. She dreamed further for me. She saw what I could be in 10 years. And everyone needs people like that. You don't want people who just want you to succeed in the short term. You want people who want to see your future and then push you towards it. So I told Jody I wanted to do, cancer research. She's like, well, there's a lot of programs. What are you looking at? And I said, well, this lady came to my poster. She seemed really nice. She's from Roswell Park. She gave me her card. And she's like, well, send her an email. Tell her you'd like to visit and, talk more about the program. So I emailed the lady. Her name is Dr. Elizabeth Rapaski. And as you can tell, there's a thread of women in my life that have changed things. I emailed Dr. Rapaski and I said, oh, hey, girl, can I come visit? I literally said, I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm thinking of applying to Roswell Park. Can I just come for a brief visit to see what being a grad student is like? Because I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I'm in college. I didn't know what that entailed, which is something I would highly recommend to anyone. If you're thinking of graduate school, write to anybody and say, can I come visit? Because you want to see what the life is like. You don't want to just jump into it. So I'm on my way there. I took the train. I love the train. I took the train there, and they sent me like an itinerary, and I was like, it's a visit. Y'all look crazy. So I'm not here to do too much. But it was like, oh, you're going to meet this person for 30 minutes. So I looked up all the people whose names I was supposed to meet. I looked up their work, came up with some questions. What did I know? I didn't know anything. So I go. And this was in November. This was right before Thanksgiving. So I go, I have a visit. I meet all these people that they wanted me to meet. They take me out to dinner. I'm like, yeah, Indian food. I love food. So the next day I go to Dr. Rapaski's office. I'm like, yo, girl, I love your program. I didn't say it like that. But I said, I had a wonderful time. This was great. I'm definitely going to apply here. And she said, awesome, because we also want to offer you a position here. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, oh, it was an interview that we did to you yesterday. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, she's like, yeah, they were impressed. You asked questions about their research. And I was like, oh, so, the nugget here is if you're given an opportunity, pretend it's the only opportunity you're going to get, because apparently you can get into grad school like that. So I got into grad school in November when most people get into grad school in March. It was awful because it made finishing college really hard. So I was checked out. I was like, oh, done. But yeah, so that's how I got into graduate school.
Well, so as a senior, I did not expect senioritis to hit this hard.
So hard.
But I'll find out in less than 2 weeks where I will be attending college. And so I know once it hits that point, I'm done. Like,
I'm so excited for you. Oh, I would do college all over again if I could. I really would. It was a lovely time. I'm sure you're going to be great. What schools are you applying to? You want to talk about that on here?
Oh, yeah, no. So I applied to the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech.
Okay.
So in the state of Georgia, we have a scholarship program through the lottery, and it pays for like 95% of our tuition. So I decided to stay in state just because of that.
Yeah.
And I'm a military kid, so I also
get some aid with that.
That's right. So I wanted to go to undergrad as cheap as possible, and I think that those two options are going to allow me to do that.
That's lovely. That's a lovely plan.
Yes, and doing these talks, I'm very impressionable. I don't know what I want to do. I know I want to do something with STEM, and so when I talk to women like you, and I think maybe 2 weeks ago I talked to Dr. Ritu Raman. Both of you are influencing me, in so many different directions of what I'm gonna do and what I'm gonna be. So,
Ritu's lovely. Yeah, Ritu always makes me want to go to MIT, but I'm like, oh, girl, no.
Yeah.
No, she's excellent. I love her. She's amazing.
Yes. So you were talking about all these amazing women. You're talking about some that pushed you to be, where you are now. So if you had the opportunity to sit down with one woman in STEM for lunch, she can be alive or not, who would that woman be?
Katherine Johnson, hands down. Like, is that even a question?
Oh
my God.
Quick.
Oh, yeah. I think when she died, I took it really hard. I'm like, you don't even know her. She's like, she's not your family member, but she changed the game. I mean, Katherine Johnson she came up with the math to make a man orbit the earth. When I think about how much intelligence that requires, I just get chills, and I want to hear her experience as a Black woman in this predominantly white male space where people would steal, your work, take credit for what you've done, and how she persevered. And because sometimes things happen in my life and I just want to throw myself on the floor and cry. I'm like, what would Katherine Johnson do? She died. I mean, I'm sure she cried at some point, but she got up and got herself together, and I would love to hear her stories. And it's unfortunate that it took so long for people to give her flowers, but they eventually did, with that movie Hidden Figures, and with her winning, I think she won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I think she got that too, I'm not sure, but she got a presidential medal. But yeah, I hope if she comes back, or if there's an afterlife, I can sit down with her with a nice little mojito and be like, hey girl, tell me everything.
Most women, when I ask that question, I think we have a 5-minute pause of just to reflect on like the multitude of women, and you're like, nope, I got it.
Oh yeah, she's that girl. Katherine Johnson she's everything, and I just as a Black woman, I go through life differently. The times have changed now. Things are a little better compared to then. So I don't know. I would love to hear how she kept true to herself, even though the outside world didn't want her to succeed. It's I think it'd be great lesson to pull out whenever I'm feeling down. So yeah.
Well, I guess the last question I have for you is, what is the best piece of advice you've been given or you would give to girls looking into pursuing a career similar to yours or a career in STEM?
I'd like to tell anyone who wants to go, any girl who wants to go into career in STEM, that don't let fear push you into decisions. You always have enough time to take a pause and then make the decision. It's okay. You don't have to rush. And people will try to tell you don't belong. And listen, let it go through one ear canal and out the other ear canal. Don't internalize it. That's them. That's on them. You absolutely belong in any way, shape, or form you're in. Bring your authentic self to the table. And in the end, have fun. I mean, the day won't come back again. So if you have it, have fun along the way. Because sometimes I look back and I didn't have fun when I should have. And I regret that. So have fun. Have fun. Yeah. But you absolutely belong, and don't let fear push you away from your dreams at all.
Well, thank you. You're so much fun. So I don't know what room you were in where you weren't having fun, because this has been a lot of fun.
Oh no, thank you. No, there's some days where I was like, oh, there's so much going on, I can't do it. But when you think about the fact that you never get these minutes back, you have to seize it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Colga Gems. You can also reach us through email. Our email is colgagems@gmail.com. That is COLGAGEMS. And I'll see y'all next time.